Hey ladies, so today's question comes from a mom who wrote, how do you not lose yourself when everyone needs you all the time? Between my kids, my husband, and everything else on my plate, I feel like there's nothing left for me. So I think that a lot of moms feel this very significantly depending on what stage of life they are currently in. And I would say that I felt this very intensely when I was a new mom and had young kids. So I had two of my kids very close together. I think like I had like two kids under three because my second was born right around the time that my first turned two. So I guess then you could say two under two. But I think that the what we're always kind of playing with when, or at least the juxtaposition of when we are a mom, is what responsibilities do I personally feel like I need to take on as a mom? What responsibilities do I feel like society and pressure is putting on me? And then what responsibilities do I feel like I personally want to hold myself to? So we have all of this like expectation of how we should show up, the things we should do, the tasks that we should complete, versus like this whole identity of where am I in giving to everybody else in my life. And in certain season of life, it can kind of feel like we are giving and giving and giving and giving so much to other people that it's like we lose who we are in all of this giving away. Because sometimes in our life, the reality is we have to pour from an empty cup. And as much as so many people say, well, you can't pour from an empty cup, it's like, yeah, but sometimes you have to pour from an empty cup because there is no other options or alternatives. And then how do you still make time for the small aspects of yourself without losing yourself in those moments? So I want to first talk about the stage of life when you have so many responsibilities, so many things pulling on your time. Like maybe you are a new mom, maybe you have several little kids, or maybe you're a single mom and you don't have anyone else to help you. I think even though I was not in all of those situations, I can remember back to a point when it felt like my entire life was going to work, taking care of my baby, cleaning the house, going to work. And that was my entire life. Even on the weekends, it felt like there was like no time or space for pursuing my own interests, pursuing my own hobbies, that it was just filled with all of these tasks that I had to do. And I think like looking back now, in those seasons of life, that it did seem like, oh, I didn't really have anything for myself. But I and even though I was feeling very drained, very burnt out, like I was spread very thin, there were still some things that I was doing that I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. I just didn't, because it wasn't time set aside specifically for those singular aspects of enjoyment, that it in that season of time I didn't recognize of, oh, these were things that I was doing for myself. So for example, when I was in the newborn stage with my first, definitely did not feel like there was a moment of time during my normal day or even week that I could say, oh, I'm taking this time just for me. Because in our minds, we have this expectation that, oh, maybe how time for you looked in the past was like going out with your friends or going shopping or like getting your nails done or your hair done, or, all of those other like time where you're actually taking it out of your day and you're leaving your home, you're doing things away from your family, and that's your me time. That's what we have like established in our brain of, this is things that we are doing for ourselves that other people are not participating in. And then once you become a mom, it's like you don't have that availability, you don't have that time. Like you are maybe doing all these other things alone, that you don't even have a resource or a friend that you can call upon and say like, hey, can I leave the baby with you so I can go get my hair done, so I can go do my nails? And so, like, trying to figure out how to still find that time for you to rejuvenate and feel full as an individual, I think how you used to be is the reality, is like you may not have that availability, and you may not have that availability for a really long season of time while your child is in such a big newborn stage. So, I was never the type of person that like spent my time, like I was always a homebody. I still am. Like I would much rather prefer to cut my own hair. Like I don't really enjoy getting my nails done. So for me, it didn't feel like so much of like losing that me time. But I did notice in the things that I would do for myself once I had kids, did not have that same availability because I was being pulled in like the direction for work and like taking care of my child and like finding enough sleep. So my me time turned into something that I didn't personally recognize as me time because it was not the things that I would have normally done and more normally have considered like me time prior to having kids. So some things that looked like was like taking extra time to sleep on weekends or being able to sleep in a little bit longer because I didn't have to get up for work. Like getting more rest for me was like me time. Some of that sometimes it looked like while I did chores or while I did things cleaning up the kitchen, it would be like putting on like a Netflix show or, whatever subscription I had at the time and watching movies or episodes or stuff that I personally prefer to watch that my husband and I wouldn't necessarily watch together because it's not something that he enjoyed. Whereas like I could still like get enjoyment out of that even though I was doing something for my family, like cleaning up the kitchen or making dinner while I was enjoying something that I personally like felt like fulfilled me and gave me enjoyment even though it didn't look like what I normally would have done in the past. So finding some of those like very small snippets of like where can you maybe layer in some of the things that you do enjoy doing when you're doing other tasks that are pulling at your time, like housework or cooking dinner or something like that. And I think more as we kind of get into, our day and age, like for me now, this has just felt very similar to how I now go through my life. Like if I'm doing housework, I have something on. I have either a podcast on or like some sort of like YouTube show or something like that that feels like I'm being kept company while I'm doing some of those more mundane tasks that I don't necessarily enjoy. And it feels like, oh, someone else is also going through the exact same things I am. And then I feel a little bit more seen because I can relate to what it is that they are saying or they're doing or they're experiencing. And then that feels like it is fulfilling me because I don't necessarily have the same time to be able to go and hang out with my friends separate from my family where there's a very specific designated space and time in my schedule because my schedule needs to look different, especially if that was something that I had to do separately before I had kids. Now, the other thing too is like instead of so those are like layers, like stacking tasks or I'm sure there's a specific word if you know it, like help me out in the comments. But like pairing in some of those things that I would have naturally enjoyed on my own and had a designated time for that, but then layering it on to something that I actually have to do and doing those activities at the same time. Now, another thing that I would often do is when I would go to work, the work that I would have to do was very like audio heavy. So like one of the jobs that I was in when I had kids was I had to listen to calls and I was the auditor. So I was scoring interactions and like giving feedback on to the employees of like, okay, these are some metrics and policies that you followed, you did a great job, or here's some areas of improvement, or we would like to see your how you interact with customers and clients in a little bit different way. So here's some feedback on that. But because it was a very like audio heavy job that my hands were actually fairly free when I was doing my work of listening to those interactions. So I got very into like color by number, which I still very much enjoy. And I would listen to the interaction and I would color while I was doing my work because my hands would be free. And so that gave me some level of enjoyment, but my mental focus is completely on the task that I'm actually doing. But it also felt like it gave me it filled my cup. It was something that I personally enjoyed. And then once the interaction was done, like I could like type up my response and my score and all of that. But it was again that whole layering of what is it that I enjoy paired with an action or a task that I actually have to complete because it's a part of my day or my responsibilities, and then pairing those together in a way that gave space for both of those activities to be done. Another thing that I had also figured out is like how to find different activities that I personally enjoyed that I didn't necessarily think of or like consider prior to because I just had so much more time. So, or changing the things that I really did enjoy, but participating in them in a completely different way. For example, like hanging out with friends. Like I would love to hang out with my friend, and we would do certain activities all together. And when I say friend, I had more than one, but I'm thinking of one in particular for the context of our conversation. So she and I would like to get together and we would have like girls sleepovers, and we would like do our nails, which is different than going to a salon, but do facials and, watch a movie and, go out to eat, or we would make like a certain meal at home and, just like have those times where we would be together, just enjoying each other's company, doing all the girl things. Well, once I became a mom, that became so much harder to do. But some ways that we then still were able to, I was still able to enjoy that activity was even though we weren't necessarily spending the same time doing those activities, we still paired in a way of how can we enjoy these activities? How can we still enjoy each other's company without taking so much time away from our family in the season of life where we both have such young kids? And I think this is why some like mommy and me groups are so common, is because we're looking for that connection. We're looking for that relationship. We're looking for those experiences where other women are going through the same challenges and can relate to exactly what we're feeling and experiencing. And so, kind of a lot of what that ended up looking like for us is we would pick a certain day of the week and a certain sequence of the month. So it was like every other Thursday we get on the phone and we talk, and we talk about whatever's going on in our life, and that became like our new like standing date on the phone, where it's like we are still connecting and making intentional time to connect with each other, even though it's not, again, separate from our family. It's having that connection that is still part of our family, and then layering in those other tasks that I can be doing that either fulfill my cup by like, again, drawing while I'm talking to her, or maybe I'm walking, going for a walk while I talk to her, which are things that I personally enjoy, or it's layering on other activities that I'm doing for my family because my time is so much more limited, like folding laundry or washing dishes or prepping for the next day's meal, etc. So I think like between your, how you said, like your kids and your husband and your work and all of those other areas, it's really identifying like what are some things that personally fill you up. And I think that we sometimes have this like idea that it has to be something away from our families, that it has to be like this grandiose, like picturesque experience. Well, it's not necessarily that it has to be that, even though that's what like society has told us. And we, hear all of these like romantic ideas of like, the woman that goes on into this beautiful trip in to like France or Paris or Europe or whatever, and she rediscovers herself and then comes back and she like changes her whole life because she's had that experience. Well, that's not really the reality of what we can necessarily experience. But if that's what we're longing for, it's like, okay, we need to change in our mind the expectation of what we have, and how can we work in little moments of our day that still feels like it's something that we personally enjoy, that's filling us up, so that way we don't feel lost in the chaos of everything that's being pulled from us because that's how everybody needs us. And I mean, a lot of this can also go back to like, are you taking on more responsibility than you should? Are you asking for help? Are you advocating for yourself? Are you making sure that other people are respectful of your time and your attention and your resources, including the resources that you personally have to give? Like there's all of those layers to it, in addition to just like finding time for yourself in the season of life that is so busy, that is so limited in the time that you have available. I think another thing that can be really helpful in a season of life, if you find yourself like just struggling for time as a resource, is learning to say no. And for me, growing up, I kind of growing up through this like experience of being a pastor's kid, and like it seemed like we were always involved in something and always like giving to somebody else, whether it was just like, oh, we're making a meal for someone else, or we're going to church to serve, or oh, we're going to somebody's house to help them in their garden or something like that. Like growing up with all of that experience, that for me, I took that upon myself of like, oh, because this has been modeled to me my whole life, then for me as an adult to be like a good person and to be a valuable aspect to society, then I have to give of myself outside of my family, and that I need to continually be sacrificing for other people to then have value. And I think that especially for young moms, that like if you are involved in church or involved in some like extracurricular organizations or something like that, that's there's always a need. There's always a need for people to participate, to serve, to volunteer. That if you have participated in those aspects in the past, then there's just like this natural expectation that you can put on yourself to still participate in that way, or that other people have of you because you did it before. Like even though your season of life has changed, like they still expect you to show up in the same way. Well, as once you become a mom, I feel like your first responsibility is to your family, and you are part of your family, so you are also responsible of making sure your first responsibility is to yourself as well. And I think that learning to say no was a really hard part that I had to go through, because I am just a people pleaser from all of my past experience and like childhood trauma of like, oh, I have to please other people to feel valuable, to feel accepted, to feel loved. And the best way for me to please other people was not to say no, was to just give and give and give and give and give until there was nothing left for myself, that I was so burnt out, I was so exhausted, I was so stretched thin by doing other things outside of what would benefit me or my family. And so recognizing like, okay, when you become a mom, your circumstances have changed, and that's a really great time to evaluate what things are you going to say yes to, because your season of life has changed. Like every time we have now that like for me and my family, every time we have a new circumstance change in our life, I take that time to like, and sometimes it happens so quickly that I don't have to now mentally sit down anymore and say like, okay, our circumstances has changed. What now needs to change about these what are they called? They're called something. It starts with a C, I think. Commitments. Okay, our circumstances have changed. Now, what needs to change about the commitments that we have already made, because we're in completely new set of circumstances. So maybe the commitment that I made in the past that were based off of a certain circumstances I had no longer makes sense for the season of life that I'm in, to be able to take care of my family and myself, to be able then to also give to other people in the same manner. That way I'm not sacrificing myself to such a degree that I can't then be present for my family. So yeah, I think that when you become a mom, because you're in a new set of circumstances, that gives you permission. And I want to validate that decision of making the determination of, okay, this commitment that I had, that I even just like, let's say internally made, to say, oh, I'm going to commit to doing this extracurricular, this volunteer activity, once a month. Well, now that I'm a mom, does that commitment still fit in line with the values that I have for me and my family? And does that commitment detract from how I'm able to show up for my family and take care of my family, including myself in my family? And if that is not the case, then I think really weighing that against like, okay, then does it make sense for you to continue giving to that previous commitment that you made when your circumstances were completely different makes sense for you in the new season of life that you're in. And as someone that was a people pleaser, was overcommitting, wanted to be involved in everything because that was my expectation, my upbringing, now coming into this new season of motherhood, realizing I can't do all of these things. I had to learn to say no. And guess what? Nobody came to me and was like, you're a horrible person, I can't believe that you dropped this commitment, or because all the commitments were in my own brain. These were commitments that I personally have felt like I made till the like ending dying days of my life, because I had done it, like I had participated in these other activities like maybe once or twice, that it was just like, okay, that does not seal me for the rest of my life to participating in these commitments. Like it's just It's just not the reality. And so recognizing, oh, the world's going to continue, they're going to continue. There are a lot of other people that are still able to participate and volunteer. And maybe when my season of life changes again, because it inevitably will, maybe that's when it's time for me to go back and then say, like, hey, I still feel called, or I still have a desire, or I still have a heart to serve or volunteer in this way. And therefore, I'm going to commit to participating in whatever this is for this season of my life where this makes sense. So, yeah, I think we need to give ourselves permission to reevaluate each designated commitment that we make and in the season of life that we find ourselves in based off of the circumstances we have to say, okay, does this make sense? Does this serve me and my family? So that way you're not losing yourself to absolutely everything, because there will be way more opportunities for you to give your time, your resources away than can ever possibly be fulfilled by just you alone. The last thing that we definitely need to keep in mind throughout the whole context of this conversation is that your season of life is going to change. You're naturally going to get to a spot where your kids get older, they can take on more responsibilities, they become more able to manage certain aspects. Like, you're not going to be changing their diaper every single day for the rest of their life, or at least you shouldn't be. They're going to start learning some autonomy, and we as moms need to help coach them through how to take responsibility, how to have some autonomy over their own life. That then's going to free up our time, our resources to then maybe start pursuing some of the other things that we personally are passionate about. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean that our passions don't also serve our family. Like, something that we could personally find really fulfilling and really purposeful can also really help support and take care of our family. So, for example, like, I decided in my 30s that through like job changes and job situations, I was like, oh, I'm going to change my career. Like I had said before, I don't know if it was in this conversation or another one, that I was, I think it was this one, that's what happens when you record multiple episodes at once. Is that, I was working as an auditor. I had an opportunity where I could, through like a whole situation, which is a conversation for another day, where I was no longer employed at that job, and then reevaluating, okay, is this something that I still want to pursue, or am I actually passionate about something else? And realizing that in that situation, like, oh, I don't want to pursue auditing, like I would much rather pursue finances. And evaluating and changing my whole career direction at that point, from auditing and like quality control and like technical experience, to then like, okay, finances and bookkeeping and, taxing and accounting and all of that. Like, that now is really fulfilling for me. And starting my own business, that is really fulfilling for me. Where I can help other moms with their finances and income and resources and, making the best financial decision for their family. Like, that is really, I'm really passionate about that. And that really is very fulfilling for me. And yet that also still really supports my family. Like, I have a job in that now. Like, I am still financially contributing to my family. Like, there are certain things that we sometimes think like, oh, because it is helping my family, that then it can't be something for me too. Because we have this whole like societal expectation of, oh, well, the woman, if she's going to, if the mom is going to find something fulfilling, it has to be away from her family. Like, no, you can still find fulfillment and joy and have that opportunity where you pour into yourself, even though you're still providing and caring for your family. I think that there's a very small portion of women, even though I think that this is often like portrayed, especially in more conservative, traditional, pockets of society, that it's like, oh, you should have all your fulfillment, you should have all of your passion or purpose from being a mom. Well, I don't think that that is true or accurate. And some women that do find all of their fulfillment from taking care of and providing and like managing their home and like doing the housework and preparing the meals, like, that is beautiful and gorgeous. And I love that for them. But that is not the reality for me. Like, I do not like like cooking. I do not like figuring out every single night, what am I going to make for dinner? Whereas like, so that aspect of motherhood, that aspect of being a mom is not fulfilling for me. But other moms find so much fulfillment and so much passion and purpose in that, whereas that is fulfilling for them and that fills them up by them doing those activities. Whereas for us, if we don't have that same passion or fulfillment, in that manner, I think that God has designed our heart to find passion and purpose and fulfillment in other things, in other tasks, in other ways to still serve our family and serve other people. And that is okay too. And I don't think that by us denying that aspect of ourself then gives more to our family, that it's a like sacrificial thing. Because if you are run down, if you're burnt out, if you have no passion, feel no purpose, if you, that's just going to lead you mentally down a really dark slippery slope that can be really challenging to then rise up and feel and be present in the best way for your family, where your family is not then concerned about you. Like, you should be a vivacious part of your family, that because you have that vivacious passion and purpose from your own self and what it is that you're pursuing. And that doesn't have to be completely separate from also taking care of your family. And I think that we have been lied to, that it is either portrayed as you have to have something completely separate from your family, where you basically emotionally or physically abandon them, or you have to be so invested in their family, that in your family, that you can't have anything separate from them. And I think that because there's this whole juxtaposition of it has to look this way or this way, we as women are completely lost and feeling like, okay, well, I don't ascribe to either of them. So where then do I fit? So, yeah, I hope that this conversation has given you some different like ideas, or like ideas of figuring out what in your current season of life can you then layer in aspects that does give you passion and purpose, even if it's something small, like again, like watching a movie or a show that you personally find enjoyment from. Like, I remember a silly thing is I loved watching 90 Day Fiance, and my husband, he's just like, why are you watching that trash? And I'm just like, I just love it. I just love the drama, because I don't have any drama in my life. I prefer it that way, but I just love the drama of that show. And so me and one of my other friends, we'd always get up together and talk about the characters, or not characters, but people, and just like, what's, going on. And that was something that I did for me, because I had so limited time to pursue anything else. Whereas now in my season of life, like, I have so much more time available, because my kids are in such a different season. Like, I'm no longer, in the baby stage. I'm in like the kids stage, and they have more autonomy, they have more responsibility. And that has allowed me to pursue other passions, like starting my business, starting this podcast, changing my degree, that I find so much passion and purpose from and fulfillment from, but it's also still supporting my family. So I really hope that this conversation has encouraged you, but also given you some really good ideas of like, how can you still find some purpose and passion in your own life, no matter what season of life that you're in. But now it's your turn. I would love to hear your thoughts on this conversation, and we can continue it in the comments. Or if you have another question or would like to submit a follow-up topic for another episode, you can find the link below. But hopefully we'll hang out again soon.